Gonna be up with you for a short amount of time here. Gonna keep it going, because that's the essence of this booth today is lots of things going on at the same time. So yeah, we are in a mirrorless world right now after shooting F-mount lenses and DSLR, and prior to that SLR, and prior to that glass plates. No, I don't go back that far, you know? But yeah, technology. I always come to events like this or moments like this and I say to myself, how much better is this going to get? Has anybody ever grappled with that or kind of said, look, this is astonishing, especially if you have a little bit of history in this field and you know where we came from. I mean, I started with cameras that were blacksmith's tools by comparison to what we have now. We have these marvelous accelerated technological achievements that have lenses attached to them somehow. It's ridiculous almost, you know, the world that opens up. And I embrace that because I actually think there's a lot of kind of naysayers out there about this business is tough, this business is really, you know, going in crazy directions. Yeah, that's true. This business has never been easy, okay? But the thing is, I actually think we're living in a golden age of photography because the technology afforded to us enables us as photographers to sort of level the playing field, right? Tilt things back, push things in our favor, open up the envelope of possibilities and our imaginations to encounter this ever increasingly difficult world that we face. When was the last time the world lined up for photographers? When was the last time we got a phone call from a client that said, you have all the time in the world and an unlimited budget? Anybody had one of those lately? I haven't, you know? Speed, efficiency, sophistication of deliverables, all that stuff is on our shoulders, and the stuff that we're witnessing here today enables us to proceed with that mission in an efficient, Jerry used that term, efficient, and also marvelous way, a voluptuous way, an ornate and well-detailed way. It's astonishing exactly how these cameras render the world. So before I go any further, in that direction, I'll just start showing you some pictures because I was blessed to have early Z7 cameras and be involved a bit in this launch. So, I am a Nikon ambassador. It's fun to be that, for sure. And I've got, this is the silly part of my imagination, right? They said, do something fun, do something weird, give the camera something to chew on, metallic surfaces, mixed lighting, you know, focus challenges, you name it. Okay, so I thought about, well, how about an alien who stops by a diner? But then I thought, well, not just an alien, not a fire-breathing alien with lightning bolts coming out of their eyes, seeking world domination. How about an elderly alien couple? The kind of couple you might see on the subway coming in from Queens or something, you know? Couple that's been together forever, okay? So, my good friend Nick, okay, volunteered. He became our alien of the day. He's a character actor here in New York. And we did this little behind the scenes here.
Welcome to the Pleasantville Diner in Pleasantville, New York. Photographers love diners. Look, we're on the road a lot. Diner food is diner food, man. It's like a road staple. It's comfort food. It's necessary. I'm an encyclopedia of diners, and this is a terrific one. And I started thinking about, what if we put an extraterrestrial, an alien, in a diner and had customers kind of react to the presence of this strange being from outer space? And that was the gist, or the beginning of this notion. Really excited to be doing this project with the new full-frame Nikon mirrorless camera. It has a huge LCD. It has edge-to-edge, phenomenal sharpness. I mean, there's all sorts of things that I can't even particularly address right now because I'm really just getting used to the camera.
You know, I got eyebrows there.
The part of the idea really is there's an alien couple. And they're not just like superhuman kind of superhero couple. They are elderly. They're like an elderly couple from Queens that you would see on the subway.
Another fabulous day at the office.
Except they're from outer space. And so some of the kibitz and some of the personality is going to be important. So is the wardrobe. We have wardrobe tailored to like what, you know, grandma and grandpa would wear when they went to the diner. Yeah, I mean, I'm loving this. I love, or in this, I mean, that looks fantastic to me. Though I do kind of miss that hat a little bit. I do love that hat. So maybe we can do it.
You could.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
The camera is small, light, and fast. You can see the profile of it, the grip, really essential, fits very comfortably in my hand. One of the beauties of this camera is the mount has changed, to be sure, but the menus have not. I look at the LCD here and I pop up my menus, I feel like I'm home again. I'm feeling like this could be a D850, this could be a D5. The nomenclature, the ordering, the menu options are all the same. With this new mount, which you see here, I make a bridge between this new full-frame mirrorless system and its new mount to the old F mount, which means that most of my existing glass works seamlessly. I am thoroughly amazed by the new Nikon full-frame mirrorless camera and had a really full, fun day, lots of pictures. Signing off from the Pleasantville Diner in Pleasantville, New York, Nikon Ambassador Joe McNally.
Anyway, it was a fun day at the diner. For a period of time there in that diner, you would witness extraterrestrials. A lot of work goes into the makeup and the background of these kinds of things. That's Nick. I thought I'd put that in there so you actually see Nick. Now here's the difference. Some folks have looked at me and said, why would you use the Z7 over a D850? And good question, right? This is Nick in the studio. As I say, he's a character actor. He's in the John Wick movies. I used a D850 for this because with the DSLR, I'm cropping this to a square format, a 1:1, and it feels more like a studio appropriate camera. There's a little bit of heft to it. I put it on a tripod. There's a formalism to it that I'm approaching the subject with. With the Z7, I'm light and fast, and I'm in the streets. I'm shooting with the same resolution, same sort of tools. They're just configured into a much more compact body. I had to fix Nick up with a lady friend. She's very nice, Jean. Yeah, and for a while there at the Pleasantville Diner, you could get a milkshake and a speed light to go. Everything was super secret about the Z7. I'm working with cameras that were not published yet, right? So I'm sighting this whole scene up with a D5. We had to collect everybody's cell phone on the set. We had to take everything away from everybody, any communication device, so no word got out about this. And here's the beautiful thing that happened. The crew and the cast actually had to have a conversation. How about that? Take the cell phones away and people actually get to know one another. Okay? It was just a fun day in the studio. Sighting now, this is the 19mm PC, bolted to the FTZ adapter, same degree of sharpness, no loss of exposure, no edge drop, nothing like that. We had a wonderful waitress who was reacting to our alien quite well. And of course, at the end of the day, grab a milkshake, head back to space. Now, Nikon really liked the alien thing, so they insisted I continue. So I did an alien in a bar for the launch of the camera. And this guy we conceived of him as an alien James Bond. Tuxedo, whole thing, 007 at the bar, martini, shaken, not stirred, etc. But then, that was another produced shot, but I mentioned to Nikon, I said, I'd like to get this camera out on the streets. Okay, I'd like to go out and use it in a way that I think it's really, at least partially designed to use. Out there, light and fast, shooting perhaps some measure of production, some type of speed light work. Take it easy, see what happens. So, of course, we're still under embargo. Can't let anybody see this camera. Can't let anybody take pictures of this camera. So, Chinatown at 3:30 in the morning. right? Had to go out, deserted streets, no human traffic out there whatsoever. Everybody's in bed, everybody's away, cameras out in the streets, and I'm letting the camera sort of fly blind. Here's where I'm just kind of taking my mission and turning it over to the camera and saying, okay, let's take this puppy out for a spin, see what it can do. So the camera's chewing on the background in an aperture priority way. This is speed lights. Okay, we've got 2 speed lights in a strip light box right here. Got a speed light down the block, lighting this green in the background, kind of playing off the green in her dress. Elegant model, lovely light, aperture priority, TTL exposure. I'm basically saying, okay, do your thing. And it did it quite well, because I was concerned about that, right? This is a radical shift in design and technology. How's it, I shoot a lot of speed lights. How's that going to make the transition? And it's made it very seamlessly. Again, lovely sort of quiet model. She had great expressions, perfectly suited to the kind of emptiness of the street. This is the 2470, and I'm shooting this pretty much wide open, handheld. Don't quote me, this is around either a 15th or a 30th of a second. Somewhere's in a high ISO range, probably ISO 1600, somewhere's in there. Again, the speed lights are giving me the stopping power to render her sharp. I go from 24 to 70, okay? And again, the camera is dealing with the background and the foreground. I'm tasking it with all the depth I'm showing in this photograph. I'm asking it to handle the exposure of these very weird streetlights. That's the way they rendered, okay? Just really weird kind of, I don't know what that is. Does anybody know what that could possibly be? Sodium vapor mixed with mercury vapor mixed with God knows what, okay? But I like the color, I like the way it rendered relative to the daylight exposure up here. This is the simple, that was basically a 2-light picture. This is even more simple, is what I'm trying to say, okay? This is 1 speed light. Nikon, I petitioned them. There's a 50mm lens that's just about out on the market. And I said, I really like to use the 50. Could you give me the 50? I had to go out to Melville, sort of like with a caravan of security. They gave me the lens for 24 hours. And they looked at it and they said, look, don't be disappointed in this lens. It's not a production lens. If anything goes wrong, you know, I'm like, relax, I'll handle it. Well, I shot this at 1.8. I brought it back and I said, what's wrong with this lens? I mean, there's nothing I'm seeing that's wrong with this lens. One of the sharpest lenses, maybe one of the sharpest pictures I've ever shot, wide open. The light gathering capacity of this wide sort of aperture, if you will, the lens mount, 55mm, is gathering light and pushing it into the corners of your photograph, so there's virtually no loss. Then I took it out west. I felt like if I'm gonna do photojournalistic portraits with this, which is what I think the camera is gonna be super, super strong at, then I'll go see my friends Rick and Nancy. Rick and Nancy live outside of Santa Fe, New Mexico. They run a program called Horses for Heroes, where they emotionally bond a veteran with a horse. And they become emotional partners, and they take care of each other, essentially. And it's a way of you know, providing therapy and a way of providing solace for someone who might be having trouble, who's coming out of a very active scenario, say for instance in the Middle East. But there's Nancy, cowgirl all the way. Simple portrait. Now this is the FTZ adapter with a 200mm lens on it, my old 200mm f2 telephoto. Good, sir? I must be good. I knocked this gentleman right off his chair. Oh my goodness. Anyway, holding tonality and detail, etc., on through, holding detail in the horse, underneath her hat, all of that stuff that I expect from a camera, and this camera is routinely delivering. As usual, I'm doing my job while I'm sitting on my butt. You know, word of caution, don't go out there and sit on a fire ant hill. Not a good idea, ruin your day. I didn't do that. Did it once a long time ago. I always look now. Looking up at Nancy, got a fortuitous gust of wind, okay? This is a flash shot, little bounce off a ceiling. We're on a rooftop, shooting these. Storm is coming in. It's never wise to do this, right, as a photographer, you know, but you keep an eye on the horizon and you try to get things done before the weather shuts you down. Little bit of flash mix, tiny little bit, okay, just emphasizing her. Otherwise, this is an available light photograph, right? It's a strip box, a 1x3 strip, right over here. Assistant's holding that on a paint pole. Last shot of the day. We were starting to pack up, and I looked up and I saw the sky, and I'm like, I can't give up this sky. I'm like, Nancy, you got a couple more minutes left in you here? She's like, whatever you need, man, whatever you need. And this, I'm gonna close very rapidly with this. I love Ellis Island. Anybody here been out to Ellis Island? I began my history at the National Geographic doing a story on Ellis Island and the reconstruction and rejuvenation of the island in 1988. National Geographic, I mean, I had grown up in New York magazines, right? Shooting for New York Magazine, Life, Sports Illustrated, Time. And a big job for those magazines would be like 3 days, 5 days, whoa, 5 days, whoa. National Geographic approached me and said, we'd like you to shoot Ellis Island for us. We're gonna give you 30 days. And that was a small story for them. I'm like, 30 days, what do I do with all that time? So I started going out to Ellis and I fell in love with the place. It was wild and rough back then. Now, a little less so. You have the museum, which is fully developed and has tons of visitors every year, but there's still an abandoned section of the island. It's the old hospital wing that they've pretty much left go to seed, and they only bring in isolated tours and a Nikon school workshop. So I've been leading those. Fantastic. The folks who are administering this section of the island do a fantastic job. They're called the Save Ellis Foundation. And I asked them recently, I said, do you have anybody who has a connection to the island? Most of the folks who came through the island, let's face it, are gone, right? But they found Margaret. Margaret came through Ellis Island she's almost 90. She came through in 1930 as a baby from Scotland off a steamship. Spent about 3 or 4 hours on the island, transited to a train, took the train to Hartford, Connecticut, where some of her family already was, and began a new life. So she was willing to come out to Ellis Island. She had all her documentation from that time, which was amazing to me. What a astonishing lady. And this is where I think the storytelling aspects of who you are as a photographer, what you're trying to bring to the table. What is the story? This is the isolation ward. They called Ellis Island the Island of Hope and the Island of Tears for a reason, because people came and they began a new life. Also, for some people, the journey stopped there. They were afflicted with some measure of disease. They weren't allowed to come into the United States. This is the isolation ward where they put some of the more severe cases, and many people who were in this room literally passed on within sight of America. But we brought her back to this room. She had her documentation and the story of why people came here. Freedom, liberty, freedom to choose, freedom to live your life as you see it. So in that old room, looking out at the statue, I was able to bring her and kind of complete a circle for her. Then we went into one of the abandoned hallways. Simple picture, one light picture. All I'm trying to do there is emphasize her face relative to the environment. Very simple photograph. Again, I think a photograph that you might say has been designed for a camera like this. Jerry was up here earlier talking about how there's such a world of information involved in this camera. And I second that for sure, because when I'm shooting this, what I'm able to do is keep my eye in the viewfinder, watch her expressions. I release the shutter button, and the photograph I just shot transits right in front of my eyes. If I shoot 8 or 10, they flip right on by, and I'm watching the development of the photograph. So I've become addicted to the information button. There's an information button on the back of the camera. You pop that up, and a whole set of options comes to you right in the screen. You never leave the eyepiece. I'm a big believer, I'm sure you guys are as well. Keep your eye on your subject. They'll do the darndest things when they think you're not looking, right? So I tend to keep my eye on my subject. And this is just another iteration of that. It's another kind of evolution. I keep my eye not only on the LCD or peeking over the camera the way I have traditionally. I've got my eye right there. I have my finger on the shutter button, and it's real life. It's right there in front of me. I can react very, very quickly. She is there, and I'm able to light her. I light her from the outside. I bring her up to exposure on the inside, and then I'm literally working with depth of field, f-stops and shutter speeds, the focus mode of the camera. Beautiful thing about working wide open like this is a 35 millimeter 1.8. I'm shooting this very wide open. There's another iteration of autofocus. Certain iterations of autofocus. How many folks here have a D850 or D810 or D's? You know, there's a variety of autofocuses. Some of those have gone away, but what has replaced them is a more simplistic autofocus menu, and incorporated into that is a pinpoint. So you can go from a single area AF to a pinpoint focus and literally drop that focus on her eye, right on the eyelashes, and it locates and it isolates, and sharpness is immediate. When I have my multi-selector button up in the back, I hit my information button, then I hit my multi-selector button, I get 100% magnification on the frame I just shot. So again, full circle to where I started. I look around and say, how much better is this going to get? Or how good is this going to get? The tools that we have are truly magnificent. Thank you very much for coming by the Nikon booth.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a 15-minute break here on this stage, and the Nikon